Hey YouTube, Awesome Rider here. This is going to be my review for the Deluxe ZenKaijuOh from Kikai Sentai Zenkaiger. This is the mecha that acts as the dual power-up mecha for Super TwoKaiser and Super Zenkaiser. Speaking of Super Zenkaiser, this is basically him. This functions as effectively his mecha form when he grows up big, but also as the power-up figure, so you can have kind of like a giant power-up figure of him. And it kind of allows him to fit in with his other robot buddies. And so right off the bat here, I just want to say my main complaint about this mecha overall is really just this cheap gray plastic. I have some little nitpicks here and there, but there's a lot I like about it, but that's really my only main sticking point. And I wanted to bring that up here at the beginning as we're going over this guy aesthetically, because I really do like the design of him, like just in principle, and in terms of the toy itself, I think that it's got really good proportions. Like I don't feel anything is that awkward. It actually looks decently accurate in my opinion to the show's proportions, but you can see we have this cheap gray plastic here, which is unfortunate. The Zenkaiger mecha in general have felt cheaper and like they're cutting corners. I think they're trying to save budget, but it's just unfortunate when you're spending so much to import Sentai mecha that you don't get that look and feel like it's worth the money. And unfortunately, this does look a little bit cheaper. Comparisons have been made to Bandai of America, which I don't want to get on a Bandai America hate train because I was always happy with their Megazords because they were $20-$25, but for $60+ or more, you kind of want something more than this cheap gray plastic. And honestly, in some aspects, the Megazords from Power Rangers Bandai era post-Samurai sometimes seem more painted than this. But that being said, I still like the design, and if I can look past the cheap gray look, I think it has a good look to it, and I don't really mind it so much. And it's not a huge deal that's going to 100% keep me from recommending it, but it is an unfortunate side effect. Like, the weapon especially looks really boring, but that's the way it looks in the show. It doesn't have, like, an enormous amount of details on it in the show. But when it's in that cheap gray plastic, it makes it look even more dull. And then the back looks really dull and whatnot, too. But again, who's going to pose it from the back? But you get what I'm saying with that. And articulation-wise, you can move his arms around 360. I'm not going to go all the way around because this is going to pop up. But you can move his arms around 360, and you can move his legs back and forth. And his legs also do bend because of the transformation, but you can maybe do some stuff with that. Unfortunately, his head can't move because of the nature of transformation, so you don't get that. Then here we have Super TwoKaiser's SD form, because he's the size of an SD card. Just kidding. But it's just like his brothers. He gets made into a little chibi form, and he has the Q-Rex/V-Rex head here on the front. Not a whole lot to say about this. I really do like the chibi designs of these guys. He's probably my least favorite just because of the giant head on the front, but I like the look of him in the show without the head. He has the head on in the show, but what I mean is just the general design of him. But the toy just looks kind of bland in general. He also does have articulation here. He can move his arms around 360, and these little hands here, which I guess look like he's a pirate that got his hands cut off and can now shoot things. These are actually going to be used to plug him into the back. And I'm going to go ahead and already just separate these and do that because that's all you need to do to get him ready for the Kaiju mode. And so we're just going to set that aside. But before we get him to the Kaiju mode, there is another mode, which is a drill mode, which recently debuted in the show as of this recording, which is kind of an homage to the way Gokai Silver's worked, because he also had a similar multiple changer mecha that also had Zyuranger and Time Ranger tributes. So we're going to take this, and we're going to fold it up, and we're going to take his chest piece. This is actually something we're going to be doing later as well. And we're going to plug it in here, and that's done. Then for this, we're just going to fold his legs up and around. Make sure you have these avoiding this, like this. You're going to plug this in right here. It acts as a sliding mechanism, and you'll see it there, and it kind of becomes a crotch piece, and then just make sure that doesn't come off there. That can be kind of flimsy. But there you have the drill mode, and you know, for the playability, it's neat that it has this because it adds just another mode to it, and there's actually quite a bit of modes you can do with this guy overall if you have more of the mecha, and it adds to that playability. That being said, it's not my least favorite mode, especially in the show, but I mean, I guess it is my least favorite mode. I guess I just mean I hate it. I don't hate it. That's what I mean. But what I mean for this is that I think this looks the cheapest. Like in terms of all the modes of this, I feel like you're gathering all the gray together in one place, and it just looks the cheapest of all the modes in it. But it's neat, you can do it for the playability factor. But let's go ahead and set him back to get him ready for the Kaiju mode. Okay, so just for the sake of it, in case you're transforming from this mode, all you have to do to get this ready is slide this back and twist this around, and you got the tail ready. So take these bits off here, and they're going to become the cannons, and plug them in here on this little one for this mode here, so they're angling downwards here, and we'll finagle the arms in a minute. Then just take his little paws, and we're gonna make them paws. I guess take his fists, and we're gonna make them little adorable rocket paws. Then we'll kind of get these out of the way a little bit, and then just kind of move his legs completely out of the way, because this is where the tail is going to go. Again, it's a sliding mechanism, and I don't think I showed it off good enough before, but it just slides there and clips in. All right, then you're going to bend his legs and his feet like this, so he's ready to sit down or stand down, stand up, down, and whatever. And then move these up, and you have him pretty much almost ready. This piece is always super loose with the unclipping. It's really annoying. Now, pop this little piece off here. Then just take the Q-Rex head from little Super TwoKaiser and snap it on right there. And then the last step here is on the back, there's two little peg holes, and you're gonna line those up with him. I'm gonna kinda, might have to do a cutaway to do it, just because it's kind of weird. There we go, that's actually not so bad. Usually it takes me a little bit longer, because it's weird having them not attached on a straight line. Then just put this back on there. You probably would have left it on there if you had it in the Super TwoKaiser mode, but I had mine off since I was doing the drill mode. But there you have the Kaiju mode, which in general is my favorite mode of this mecha. I think it's a really cool design. I've said this in the past when discussing this one, but it's definitely the most obvious. It makes sense since it's related to TwoKaiser, but next to TwoKaiser, it's the most obvious tribute design. I mean, all of Zenkaiger's designs have, you know, obvious tributes, but these are just the most blatant, almost seeming like they're from the show directly. You know, looks like what happens if the Q-Rex ate the Dragon Zord for lunch. But I think it looks really awesome. The fact that its name is ZenKaijuOh and it's a kaiju is also pretty awesome. I think it's very fitting. Also, the mouth opens here, which is neat. The toy doesn't look as good as the show, and from some angles it can look a little bit messy, but I still think it looks pretty cool. And I think this one, at least to me personally, this mode looks the least cheap. I think because you kind of have all of the other good painted bits all together and the way he's hunched over, like it's much less noticeable looking at this right here, the cheaper bits. The cheaper bits are much less noticeable here than they are like in the drill mode. And overall, it's still pretty neat for what it is, and I still do like it. Now, this isn't all this guy does, because he also can combine with the other previous two mechas, ZenKaiOh and TwoKaiOh. So let's go ahead and show ZenKaiOh first. So in order to do that, I'm just going to basically take him back to one, basically back to the Super Zenkaiser mode. Now for this mode, we're just going to remove this arm here, and we're going to remove this and just set it aside. All those other things are going to be used for other things. And for this, we're just going to switch this to the other port. It's going to be facing forward right here. There's a good chance that'll fall off and I'll have to pick it up. And then you're going to take the legs here, and first thing you're going to do is there's a little release button here, and use that to release the foot, because we're going to put that on Zyuranger. And then twist these around to make it one leg. And then take this little guy off, because we're actually going to need him for something else in a few minutes. And then what you're going to do is just turn this around so this is facing this, like so, and then reclap it on there, and then just turn that around there. Now for Zyuranger, take this little extra piece they give you and you slide it right on here so that he can take on the extra cannon. Just put the foot you stole on him. You're going to snap these two guys together, and I want to do it so that I plan the jingle out and everything right. There we go. So yeah, that's pretty cool. I actually quite dig this mode. It doesn't match up 100% because you kind of have the different sizes here, kind of like a couple of the other modes where they don't match up, but I think the color combo looks good, and it actually looks pretty awesome, and I like that they included the ability to do this. I think it makes it fun to have a little bit extra playability, and kind of makes you feel like you're getting your money's worth a little bit if you're collecting all the mecha, and I think it overall has a very solid design to it. Now you can also, they don't show this on the box, you can do it, I don't know if they'll do it in the show, I'm going to presume they'll do it in the show, but you can also do it with Vroon. So let's take a quick look at that. Okay, so let's bring them together. And you know what? That one doesn't look half bad either. I'm not sure which one I like better. I think this one actually looks a little cooler than I thought it would. But I think the other one just looks a slight bit better since it seems a little bit more planned for. But again, the fact that you can do that with both of them I think is a really nice bonus. You obviously can't do it with Majin and Gown because it's the opposite sides. But now let's go ahead and take a look at the TwoKaiOh version. For This basically just get the Ricky formation here and then take the little guy out and then take this piece off, which if you didn't know, it does come off. Now take this and straighten it out from before, and we're gonna bring this back, put this back on it like we had in the drill formation, and then snap that on there. And then pull this out, and we'll use this to hold it like that. Then just take him, twist his head around, make sure this is up, and plug him in. You can do it the fun way, but this is the easy way. Take the easy way out. I always do. It's so easy. Then take the Q-Rex head, and you're going to separate it, even though I just closed it. Make sure it's open. You're definitely going to want to make sure it's open, up obviously, but make sure it's open when you snap it on here, because otherwise you're going to have some difficulties, because it needs to have the mouths to move around. Alright, and there you have it. And I actually really quite dig this mode, to be honest. I do like TwoKaiser's mecha in general. I think in terms of the mecha toy, this is a classic case of it looking better in show, especially for the Shinkenger formation, which I really quite like in the show, and I just felt that the toy fell short, not felt short, but I guess both, that it fell short and looked really cheap. And I think this looks better in the show too, and it still suffers from some of the same problems of just seeing the general cheap quality of both mecha, but I think when you bring it all together, it looks a little bit cooler in person, and it's kind of nice to have this third TwoKaiOh mode that looks more presentable, in my opinion, for a shelf piece. I think the worst part of this is actually just the legs, and that has like no fault of ZenKaijuOh at all. It's just his same legs. Should have brought him some new pants, man. But still, I really quite dig this mode. But now let's get on to the final verdict. Okay guys, that's about it for this one. So overall, do I recommend this? Pretty much yes. It's not perfect. Like I said, my only really huge flaw with this is the cheap gray plastic, which unfortunately doesn't make it look or feel the greatest. But for me, it still looks okay, and I still really dig the designs, and for me, all the modes, when they're just sitting there on display, honestly look fine for me, even though I wish they were better, but it's not as awful as like TwoKaiOh. Like, I was really disappointed in TwoKaiOh, where I just did not like the look of it by itself. I couldn't even decide how to display it. But with this, though I was disappointed, I think just the way it looks still made it up for me. I would say if you're like me and you're collecting the whole line, I can definitely recommend it, because I do like that this has a lot of playability. You get 3 modes on its own, plus an additional 3 if you collect the other 2 mecha. So that's a lot, and I really think that's a nice value to it. If I could only recommend one mecha, I would personally recommend this one, because I think it's the funnest and the coolest looking. Maybe go for a sale though, either way. I feel like that's good advice, even if it's something you really want to wait for a lower price. But because it does feel cheaper, I think that you would feel better about the purchase if you paid a little bit less. But I still find it to be my favorite mecha of the line so far, even if it still feels cheap and imperfect in some places. But I had more fun with this than the last few. That's about it for this one though, guys. Until next time, like, comment, subscribe, and climb the steps and ring that bell so you get notifications for my videos. Dawson Ryder, signing out.